Trafalgar Group Chief Pollster Robert Cahaly and the chairman of the polling group InsiderAdvantage Matt Towery is with us. To their credit, both of them nailed 2020 and 2016 and the Georgia Senate races. You have a great track record. Interestingly, you almost have identical polls for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Matt Towery, we'll start with you.
Well, Robert does a great job, and I'm trying to keep up with him. Yes, Virginia. What happened in this race are two things, Sean. You had the comment made by Terry McAuliffe several weeks ago or whenever about the parents in the classroom. But what really changed this race was the decision by the Democrats to go heavy national. And you heard Donald Trump's name in ads and discussed in every single speech they gave. And all they did was turn this race from being a close race to being a not so close race. In the last 3 days, we saw the numbers shift phenomenally towards Youngkin. So it's going to be close. But the acceleration for Youngkin, particularly among independent voters, we noticed has been phenomenal in the last 3 or 4 days as the Democrats decided to make this about Donald Trump. Well, it's about Donald Trump in a sense, and it looks like Donald Trump is going to turn out a winner along with Youngkin.
You know, as I look at these numbers, we just put up the Fox poll. I felt the Fox poll when I dug a little deeper into the poll. I felt it was an outlier. Do both of you agree with that or not agree with that? Real quick, Matt.
Well, I mean, I think that they were getting probably a fair representation. We all weight our polls differently. I don't think it's going to be an 8-point difference. Our Fox affiliate that we polled for in D.C. today, we showed it a 2-point race. It could have been a 3.5 if we weighted it a little differently. But quite frankly, I don't think we're going to get to 8.
And you're kind of in the 2 area where I have been. And Robert, you've been in the 2 to 3 area as well. Where are you now with your final poll?
Real Clear rounds it to 2, but it's a 2.3 is what we have it at. And we feel pretty confident with that. What we are seeing is the undecideds that are still there aren't many, but they seem to be breaking toward Youngkin. And we definitely see this as a trend. There's just no enthusiasm right now. And they're trying to gin it up, but it's just not effective. This using Trump wasn't very effective.
A friend of mine, Robert, sent me a picture of Leesburg, where the final rally is happening for Youngkin now after he did the interview with us. And it looked like a mini Trump rally. The crowd was massive. And anecdotally, and you can't go by crowd size, what we've been seeing with Terry McAuliffe events are very few people showing up. In some cases, more members of the press. One recent event, I think yesterday or today, 40 people showed up. There doesn't seem to be enthusiasm at all for him. And even when he brought in Obama and Biden, at best they had 2,000. You know, compare that to a typical Trump rally. You have 40,000 that can't get in the stadium that's packed.
Absolutely. The Democrats in Virginia and to a lesser extent New Jersey seem to be about as excited as Joe Biden at a climate summit. As at a climate summit.
Yeah, when he fell asleep. I still can't believe the aide had to go over and wake him up. One of the things that I've complained a lot about, Matt, is the electoral map. Because if you're a Republican and you want to be president, you got to win Florida, you got to win Georgia, you got to win North Carolina. You got to win Ohio. You got to pick off Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, or a combination thereof. Then you got to look at New Hampshire. Then you got to go out and look at Arizona and Nevada and hopefully pick off states there. Now, would this be a moment where we could have a demographic shift in a state like Virginia? Would we be reading too much into it to think that things might change now?
We might be, but I think the greater lesson we would get from this change in Virginia, if it takes place, is that it's going to be representative of what's going on in other states that are even closer to being red states or purple states that could go red. I think you're beginning to see a wave. The Biden administration's polling numbers are disastrous. It's just been a complete wreck. You have 2 pieces of legislation sitting on Capitol Hill that don't seem to be going anywhere because the 2 sides of the Democratic Party can't agree. And if I'm Joe Manchin, there is no way I'm going to get near this legislation. after a Virginia defeat.
Well, he's pretty
actually
angry today
Youngkin
about
wins.
the phony accounting tricks that the Democrats are using, which is something we pointed out last week. So let's go to New Jersey. What do you see happening there, Robert? Because you showed a tightening of that race.
We do. We showed a lead around 4, I think 4.2 for the Murphy. But what's interesting is we haven't seen him get over 50. And what I find is if all the undecideds were to break against him, and he's an incumbent, and undecideds don't tend to favor incumbents this late, then that race could go right into a very close election, and it could go either way. So the lack of ability to get above 50 and stay there on the part of that incumbent, I think really makes this thing a lot more competitive than people saw it. Lots of talk, open-ended questions about the vaccine mandates, and there's a lot of cops and stuff like that, and first responders from New York who were very frustrated who live in New Jersey.
Any chance, Matt Towery? We got 10 seconds. New
Oh,
Jersey.
there's always a chance, and even if it's close, it's going to tell us something about the rest of the country.
All right, Matt Towery, Robert Cahaly, thank you both. More Hannity.